Can't believe it's my last day in office. Significant 8 years this has been. Before I head back to Virginia with Martha, I wish to recall and reflect upon what has happened in our country this far. I can remember hearing stories of when it all began, back in Jamestown.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Captain Jonathan Smith. When I was born, Queen Elizabeth I was ruling, and Shakespeare was only 16. I've had many adventures in the past, but the first was during the voyage to Virginia. Some gentlemen built gallows for me to hang on because I was threatened with mutiny. I was saved by the Virginia Company, who hired me. They sent a box full of names of the council leaders. I was one of the names. When Jamestown was officially established, I went hunting because everyone else was digging for gold. Though I got captured by Indians. Pocahontas, the chieftain's daughter, saved me. She was around 11 and played an important part in Jamestown's survival by bringing us food. After a lot of argument, I became the president of the council in Jamestown. It was the only way they ever survived. The settlers did not like me, and they did not like my laws, especially the law, "He that will not work shall not eat." After an accident where my gunpowder pouch exploded, I was sent back to England because there was no doctors in the New World. I became an author and wrote books about the New World, inspiring many explorers to go. Now I'm planning a trip to Maine, where I will encounter more dangers and more adventure.
As I think to our more recent history, many hands helped to free this nation from the bonds of tyranny. Some fought, some lost loved ones, and others sounded the alarm.
The British are coming, the British are coming. I, Paul Revere, did extravagant things during the Revolutionary War. As a young man, I was not typical. As a kid, I loved swimming, riding horses, and playing with my friends. I also sought adventure. When I was 15, I fought in the French and Indian War. When I was an adult, I had 11 kids, 5 of whom, sadly, died young. My atypical life prepared me for my adulthood. I am best known for my noble ride to Lexington and Concord to warn the colonists that the British were coming. On April 18th, I rode to Lexington and Concord because I needed to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock about the British redcoats coming to their town. When I discovered that the British were moving by sea, I hung 2 lanterns in the church before I left to Concord. Realizing I forgot my spurs, I told my dog to take a note to my wife. My dog quickly ran home, and my wife read the note I tied to his collar. My wife gave the dog my spurs, and the dog ran back to me. Unexpectedly, I ran into British troops during the ride. They took my horse, Brown Beauty, so I had to walk 18.5 miles back to Boston. In addition to the ride, I did many significant things during the Revolutionary War. When the Stamp Act was passed, I joined a secret group of rebels called the Sons of Liberty. Throwing tea off of British ships, I bravely took part in the Boston Tea Party. I also went to jail for treason against the British for snooping around Castle Island, which was the location of a British fort. Since I was a patriot, I did extraordinary things during the Revolutionary War. The most significant thing I did was warn John Hancock and Samuel Adams, because if I had not warned them, they would have been arrested by the British authorities. My significant life contributed to freedom.
Even though I have been successful as president these past 8 years, my success would have been nothing without my right-hand man.
Those who stand for nothing fall for everything. Hello, I'm Alexander Hamilton. I was born in 1757 on the island of St. Croix. When I was young, my father was in and out of my life. He was an aristocrat, but since he wasn't the oldest, he kind of didn't get any money. So he just went around the islands trying to find money for me and my family. Eventually, he just left. I never met him. My mother died in 1768 when I was around the age of 10. When I was age 10, I also had 34 books in my household. I read them all. I loved to read, and I had a lot of pride. All the other kids my age came from rich families, and they got to go to fancy schools. I did not. I believe that I should be able to. When I was 16, a hurricane hit. I wrote about the destruction and how everything was just strewn throughout the streets. That, everybody thought, was talent. And so they sent me to the States to get an education. There, I went to college. The Revolutionary War was just starting. There I met Aaron Burr, who would later play a very, very big role in my life. Some of the things I did, so I started off as George Washington's secretary. From there, I became a general, and then I also helped write the Constitution. I wrote the Federalist Papers, and many other things. One of the biggest things in my life was achievements. I wanted to achieve as much as I possibly could. When I was 49, Aaron Burr and I fought in a duel. I had always fought. We were always rivals in all sorts of places, politics, you name it. We fought above the Hudson River in New Jersey. I aimed at the sky, believing that any honorable man would not shoot me if I was not aiming at him. I was wrong. Very, very, very wrong. He shot me right above the hip. I died the next day, July 12th. Yeah, that was my life. Peace.
Of course, where would any of us be without the fortitude of the women who stood beside us and supported us?
I am Elizabeth Schuyler Hamilton. You just met my husband, Alexander Hamilton. I remember the day I first met Alexander. He brought a letter to my father. He stayed for dinner, and he told us all about his plans for the future. I instantly fell in love. On December 14th, 1780, we got married. Afterwards, we had Philip, our firstborn son. And after that, 7 more kids. And we thought that was a lot of kids. We were a happy family of 10. But sadly, in 1801, Philip died in a duel. Our second-born, Angelica, was so depressed at her siblings' passing that she had to be under a doctor's care for the rest of her life. It felt like I lost her too. I experienced loss of loss in my family. I experienced my mom and my dad and my sister all dying, and in 1804, Alexander dying. I had to provide for my family all by myself. So I created the first private orphanage in New York City. I loved all of the kids and raised them as my own. And by 1837, we had to move to a new building in Bloomingdale because our old building was full of kids. Eventually, I was too old to work with the kids, so I helped raise funds for a Washington monument. Sadly, I did not live to see it stand. I am Elizabeth Schuyler.
I'm so proud of all the sacrifices that we've made to come this far. Thinking of the future, I wonder what will become of this great country of ours. And I wonder what we will discover as we explore this great land of the world.
Good evening. My name is Dan Boone. Well, I've never made an actual speech before, but I'll do my best for you tonight. I was born in the fall of 1734 in Pennsylvania. I moved to a small farm in North Carolina when I was a young boy. On the farm, my job was to herd the cattle. I was a curious child, and once I saw rabbit prints leading into the wood. I followed that prints. That evening, we had rabbit for dinner. When I was 12, I learned how to hunt and track from friendly native Delaware Indians. When I was 15, I was known as the best hunter in the region. Later, I was a wagon driver and blacksmith in the French and Indian War. The war made me hate to take lives. It also toughened me for my life ahead. My adventures turned into dangerous encounters in Kentucky with angry Indians. While in Kentucky, some businessmen approached me, asking me to build a wilderness road, since they knew I knew Kentucky well. The wilderness road was a road that went through the Cumberland Gap and ended at Fort Boonesborough. Fort Boonesborough was named after me because the people trusted me to protect them. Once I was captured by Indians and made to run the gauntlet, which means that the Indians lined up in an alley and hit me with clubs and sticks while I ran through them. Luckily, I survived. Now I want to go to Missouri and settle down with a few acres of my own, because now Kentucky's getting too crowded for my tastes as well.
I believe that it is possible to explore all the territories, from the East Coast all the way westward. I believe we shall get there one day. I wonder how.
I am a brave, bold, beautiful Native American explorer. I have camped in the wild with bears, buffalo, and ferocious wolves. I was born in 1789 in Idaho, over 200 years ago, into the Shoshone tribe. My name, Sacagawea, means bird woman. I was captured and married to Charbonneau at just 10 years old. I am resourceful and live off the land, making it clothes from animals and plants and medicines from plants. We dig roots to eat and hunt sheep, buffalo, and salmon. Children in our village play with clay and make sleds out of buffalo ribs. I helped Lewis and Clark explore new territory with a baby on my back. I spoke to the Shoshone people for them and obtained horses. I also saved journals and other supplies when our boat tipped over. I survived bitter cold and starvation during our exploration to America. I am remembered all over the United States with memorials and a gold dollar coin in my honor. I am a Native American that changed American history forever. I am Sacagawea.
In order to take incredible leap to tame this great frontier, they will have to be quite brave.
Hello, my name is Davy Crockett. I was born August 17th, 1789, in Tennessee. I had 6 siblings, 3 girls and 4 boys, including me. My poor parents. Oh, so bad. I grew up shooting guns, and not to brag, but I was quite the marksman. I only attended school for 2 years because I got into a fight with a bully leading up to my runaway at the age of 13, fearing the beating from my father and my teacher. Soon, I married a wonderful woman named Polly Finley. We lived a happy life together. While I was married, I killed 105 bears in 1 year. Thank you very much, thank you. But I couldn't have done it without my trusty dogs, Grim, Growler, and Deathmaw. Yes, I did name those. Later, I went into the French and Indian War and became famous for leading my men out of an ambush. Soon, I joined Congress, and for 2 terms, thank you very much, I went to the Alamo in 1836, and when my general drew a line in the sand, I was the first to cross, meaning that I would stay and fight to the very last breath. And I did. I was stabbed to death by a Mexican bayonet at the young age of 49 years old. But from that day forward, men would scream and yell when they ran into battle, "Remember the Alamo." Thank you.
Virginia surely is a beautiful state. I wonder what the rest of these lands look like. As I close my eyes, can almost picture their beauty.
Hello, my name is Catherine Lee Bates, and today I'm going to tell you all about myself. I was born on August 12th, 1859, and was the smallest of 4 kids. I was very creative, much other than all my siblings. And I wrote many poems and was a teacher when I grew up. I was accepted into Wesley College with another 43 girls, and I was very happy to be going to school because back then, most girls were not allowed to go to school. But although I got to go, there were many rules, such as no candy, and you had to be in bed by 10 p.m. I was a great writer and a good student. After I graduated at Wesley College, I became a teacher there for 40 years. I was also a good poet. I published many of my written compositions to the Daily News, and some of my children's poems made it to Europe. One day I was asked to teach in Colorado College for 3 weeks. I said yes. My first stop on the journey was Niagara Falls, where in my journal I described it as a wonderful thrill of peril and of glory and peril. My second stop was the Chicago Fair, where I rode the first Ferris wheel for 50 cents. As me and my companion traveled on the train, I saw the golden fields of wheat and grain. During my time teaching, I visited Red Rock Canyon, Manitou Lake, and Garden of the Gods. During the end of my trip, me and other college professors went up Pikes Peak. I was stunned by the view and began writing a poem, but sadly some of my companions fainted from the high altitude. The next summer, I published my poem to the Daily News. Everyone loved my poem, America the Beautiful. A preacher once heard my poem and decided to find music to accompany it. Everyone wanted to sing my poem, and advertisements were coming in every day for new music. Eventually, everyone decided that Samuel A. Ward's Tune Materna was the best. It became our national hymn. In World War I, soldiers carried little hymn books that included America the Beautiful in them. In 1970, I was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And that is a little bit about me, Catherine Lee Bates.
I know that our hard-won freedoms will inspire people to reach for the sky.
Man must rise above the earth, to the top of the atmosphere and beyond, for only thus will he fully understand the world in which he lives in. Socrates. I am Wilbur Wright, one of the world's greatest inventors and the first man to partake in the miracle of flight. While flying and gliding through the air on untested designs, I willingly risked life and limb to realize my dream, because dreams are worth the risk. When me and my brother Orville were children, we curiously created many inventions, such as the fastest sled in town with a steering mechanism. When we were older, we created the first wind tunnel, which allowed us to find the perfect materials for our planes. Later, we opened up a bicycle store. We created the fleet, fast, and favorite racing bike called the Van Cleef. We sold countless bicycles, which we used the profits for building airplanes, and we turned our bicycle store into an airplane workshop. I created many useful emergency gliding techniques for gliding, since many people have lost their lives in plane crashes. We created a glider without an engine first to test our design, and I was the first pilot in human history. I created one of the greatest miracles in the world, which still greatly inspires inventors and engineers to this day. When we flew, we showed the world that the sky's the limit, because anything is possible with enough research and hard work. With my skills and character, I was able to rise above and help us all fully understand what is possible. Thank you.
Because of all the freedoms that this new country provides, it will most certainly cultivate brilliant minds to flourish.
Hi, my name is Albert Einstein. I was born on March 14th, 1879, in Ulm, Germany. As a child, my parents thought there was something wrong with me because I had not spoken my first words yet. So they took me to the doctor, but the doctor said there was nothing wrong. When I was 4 years old, sorry, I needed to shave. When I was 4 years old, I finally decided to speak while I was eating soup. I said, "The soup is too hot!" My parents asked me why I haven't spoken before, and I said, because up to now, everything has been fine. I went to high school when I was 10. They kicked me out because I asked too many questions and they did not know the answers to any of them. My brain was always thinking, so I decided to research the answers myself. Turns out I did not need the teachers anyway. My dream was to be a physics professor, so I needed to finish high school. In Switzerland, I found a new high school that let me ask many questions, and boy, I have a lot. When I graduated university, I could not find work as a professor. So I started working at the patent office, granting patents on new inventions. Soon after, I married the love of my life, Miliva. We had 3 children together, but I'll save that story for another time. Anyway, I usually finish my work way before or it was time to go home. So I would spend my extra time writing scientific papers such as my famous paper on relativity. The university convinced me to leave the patent office and work as a professor. Sadly, that meant I had to move to Berlin. Miliva would not move with me because she did not like the people in Berlin. We separated. Right after, I won a Nobel Prize and fell in love with my cousin, Elsa. She made me so happy and took care of me. When I died, a doctor cut out my brain and sold it to study what makes up the brain of a genius. He kept a piece of it in a jar and carried it for 40 years. He found that my brain was actually smaller than the average brain. But the part that learned mathematics was bigger. There is still a piece of my brain floating around in a hospital to this day. Thank you for listening to my life story.
After this war that we have recently endured, one can only hope that no more wars will be necessary. But should they come, I am confident that people around the world will step up to show bravery and compassion.
How would you feel if you had to be smuggled away from your family while they were being exterminated, not knowing if you would ever see them again? The children who Irena Sendler rescued were forced to live this nightmare. The Nazi army invaded Poland in 1939 during World War II. Hitler and the Nazis hated the Jewish people and killed 3 million Polish Jews. I knew I had to help them, especially the children. My father inspired me to work as a social worker in the Warsaw Ghetto. The disease-ridden ghetto was a small part of Warsaw where the Jews were forced to live in horrible conditions. Any Jews trying to escape would be shot.
Despite this danger, I smuggled the children out through tunnels and filthy sewers and helped them to pass as non-Jewish Polish citizens. Children and babies moved under the Nazis' noses using coffins, toolboxes, and anything else I could find. I kept the Jewish children's names in a jar so after the war the children's parents could find them. I joined an underground group of people who helped the Jews called Zagata. I didn't know it, but the Gestapo was close to catching me. They had captured a Zagata member and tormented her into revealing my name before she was killed. The Nazi army came inside my house and accused me of hiding Jews. When they didn't find anything after searching my apartment for 3 hours, they arrested me anyways. Luckily, a friend hid the jar of Jewish children's names and escaped. For half a year, I was beaten and interrogated, but I didn't tell them anything. At the last minute, a Zagata agent bribed a soldier and I escaped the firing squad. I returned to working with Zagata but had to stay hidden. Eventually, stories came out that I had saved over 2,500 Jewish children from the Nazi death camps. In 2007, I was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
We will inevitably face difficulties. I pray that God will rise up leaders who will lead us towards unity and freedom.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I, Martin Luther King Jr., boldly spoke these words in Washington, D.C. because I did not want my children and others to be treated unjustly. I was born in Georgia on January 15th, 1929. When I was a young boy, my father and I entered a shoe store, and a clerk rudely told us that if we were to purchase shoes, we would have to sit in the back of the store because we were black. Unfortunately, this was not the only time I faced racial discrimination. In the mid-1900s, African Americans were not allowed to enter hotels, eat in restaurants, swim in public pools, drink from certain water fountains, try on clothes in stores, or sit in the front of public buses. If we wanted to go to school, we would have to enroll in an all-black school, even if we had to walk for miles to get there. Voting was even illegal. Despite the inequalities surrounding me, my young adulthood was filled with the desire to grow in knowledge, faith, and love. At age 17, I began preaching the gospel at my church. I understood why Jesus preached, "Love your enemies and turn the other cheek." After graduating from Crozier Theological Seminary, I married Coretta Scott and we had 4 children. I gained my PhD from Boston University and hope to valiantly and peacefully stand up against racism. In 1960, the sit-in movement began in North Carolina, and I led this first peaceful protest. In 1963, 250,000 people marched together through Washington, D.C. to fight because they believe people of all races should be treated equally. Afterwards, I gave a speech on what I hoped America would one day become. I won the Nobel Peace Prize at age 35. A year later, 5,000 people from across the country marched with me from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama to fight for our right to vote. The challenging march lasted 5 days, but we were successful. Sadly, I was assassinated on a hotel balcony at age 39. I improved the quality of lives for African Americans and inspired millions of people of all races to treat one another with love. If someone ever treats you unjustly, please remember my words. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
As I look up to the night sky, I can only dream of what it would be like to be up there among the stars.
Hello, I'm Michael Collins, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So, I was born in October 31st, 1930, in Rome, Italy. My father was a major general in the U.S. Army, and as soon as I was old enough, I attended West Point, hoping to follow him into the Army. However, I soon discovered a new way to serve the Air Force. So I served in the Air Force for a few years. After my military career, I was called up to NASA, where I worked on spacesuits with a team of astronauts. Although spacesuits do provide oxygen in space, they're the most uncomfortable things I have ever worn in my life. You do not want to be wearing the thing I am standing here talking to you in. Anyway, soon I was assigned the Apollo 11 mission where a man would actually be setting foot on the moon. However, this was no one-person operation. I would be going up there with two other people whose names were Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin. Together our vehicle consisted of 3 parts. I have 2 of them with me right now. So there was the command module, there was the lunar module, and then under them both was the rocket, which I do not have with me to show you today. So anyway, we boarded the rocket, counted down, and blasted off. Within a few days, we reached the moon. When we got there, Neil and Buzz climbed into the lunar module and descended to the moon. I stayed behind in the command module and circled the planet. After many times of circling the planet, of orbiting it, they came back up, and together we all went to Earth. And now, if you'll excuse me, I would love to go enjoy some time with my 3 children and my beautiful wife, Patricia.
Above all, I hope that the American people are trademarked by their great love for one another and for the ways in which they treat their neighbors.
I have always wanted a neighbor just like you. I have always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, could you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? When I, Fred Rogers, wrote this catchy tune, I took the word neighbor from Jesus' commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. I believe that everyone you meet should be treated with love and kindness. Unfortunately, I had a difficult childhood. I felt lonely as an only child. I was also sick a lot. I did not like going to school because bullies chased me and called me Fat Freddy. I liked to play piano, make up my own songs, and create puppets out of socks. I was not a very confident kid. Once, my grandfather encouraged me to climb a high wall. When I reached the top, he said, "Freddy, you made this day special just by being yourself." I never forgot that. I had many dreams I hoped to fulfill as an adult. I studied music in college, but hoped to improve children's television. I was hired on a show called The Children's Corner to play piano and do voices for puppets like King Friday and Daniel Striped Tiger. My wife Joanne and 2 sons were very supportive. I was a minister, but I preferred working on children's television. At age 42, my dream came true when I created my own show called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It aired in 1968 on many TV stations. Mr. McFeely was named after my grandpa. On my show, I'd sing songs, teach a lesson, venture to the neighborhood and make believe, and remind kids that they were special. I had many famous people on my show, like musician Yo-Yo Ma and astronaut Al Worden. I produced 900 episodes for 30 years before retiring in 2000. I received an Emmy Award, TV Hall of Fame, and Presidential Medal of Freedom. The most important part of my show were the messages that shared hope and love. I talked to kids that it was okay to cry and God made us all special. I also talked to kids about hard topics like death, divorce, and tragedies. Even though I died in 2003 from stomach cancer, my messages still live on today through the people that I inspired. So I hope you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, it's you I like, it's you yourself, it's you I like.
Now that the American seed has been planted on these great lands, I can retire with confidence and peace. I will walk away continuing to dream of the harvest to come, with the continued hard work and dedicated hearts of the American people.
if you open up your programs, the words are going to be on the middle page. We're going to do the first and the third verse.